Okay, so there's basically two different types of projectile points in the Clovis era, the Paleo-Indian era, in which Clovis was made, and it was the bone point and the stone. Now this one here is a cast, and I believe they think it's made of mammoth bone, but I'm not sure. I have the Lithics Casting Lab information on this somewhere. I just can't find it. But you can look it up on Lithics Casting Lab at their website. They've got this listed as one of the items that they sell, and you can look it up in case I don't get back to it. All right. So this is the Clovis I made in the previous videos, and I've got both of these hafted up with hemp cordage or hemp string that you can buy at the store. This is thicker than I would think that they used in the past, but it's what I have available for the video. I didn't have any time to make really thin thread for these, so this is just kind of expedient. But what I'm going to do is I'll show you how I hafted this up. Now this is 1/2 inch dowel. Both both of these are 1/2 inch dowel birch, and I think this was the typical diameter for an atlatl dart of the time. Okay, and as time goes on, I'll demonstrate why. It seems to fit many different types of points. Okay, so 1/2 inch birch dowel, which also fits this cast of a bone point perfectly. So I'm going to take this apart so you can see how I hafted this. Now it's just held together with this string. In the past, there was some glue used in here to fasten these, because they do pull out. It will pull out from this no matter how tightly you wrap this string. You need some glue in there to keep it from pulling out, all right, and from moving around and getting loose. You don't need much, and you'll see the joint is, if you make it well, you don't need much glue for it. Okay, so it's a two-part joint. It took me a little while to get my head wrapped around how to mount this so the point is in line with the shaft, with the foreshaft. Okay, but after some finagling, I got that to work. Okay. And I put a little shelf in here, and this butts up against it nicely, and it would definitely be a solid connection. Okay, now this distance here, let's see. The overlap slightly more than 2 1/4 inches in overlap here. And on the artifact you can see that it was scored to make it rougher, and the wood would probably be scored as well for the glue to hold on better. Okay, but it's a very tight joint, so you don't need much. Okay. So there's that. And this is slightly convex, this surface. So I had to make this surface slightly concave. Okay, I think you can see. Now, I didn't do the joint perfectly. You can see there's a little bit of gap in there. But just for expediency, I just quickly did that with the bandsaw and a little bit of sanding. Okay, but once you get the hang of it, you can make a bunch of these easily with stone tools. This doesn't require a lot of skill to accomplish. Okay, this just takes time. This will take time to grind down to shape, but it's not a complicated weapon. All right. Now the Clovis is a little bit different. I used a wedge in here to tighten it up, and I'll show you. Again, glue was probably, well, most definitely used in here to keep it from pulling out, because it will pull out. It will pull out this way. Right now, it also rocks back and forth a good amount. Even though the binding is very tight, it does rock back and forth. So you need some glue in there to hold it firm. Oh, and before I forget, I was talking about the vegetation during the Paleo period, and I mentioned that the papyrus was a rush, but it's actually a sedge. So there are various plants during that time, shrubs, sedges, rushes, and grasses. I think that those were the main types of plants that the mastodons and the mammoths were feeding on. That's just my theory. There are a lot of other types of plants. I didn't write them down. But these types of plants are where you can get cordage and wood for foreshafts and handles. Like, as an example here, I got a piece of sagebrush, and it's very, very hard. Now, I don't know if there were sage trees at that time, but this is just to give you an example of something that you would not normally think would be good for a foreshaft, but this is just as tough as the birch. Okay, this is sage again, purple sage in this case. Right, I just sanded this a little bit so I could see the color of the wood. Anyway, I don't know what they were using for the shafts of their ladles, but foreshafts can easily be made by using parts of shrubs. Okay. They may have been using reeds, but as you can see, this is not a way to join to reed. This is joined to a solid shaft. Now I don't know if they would put the point and then a foreshaft and then the reed. But it seems like it would not be that way. It looks. I would risk. I'd go out on a limb and say that both of these points were hafted straight to self arrows of some type of wood. Okay, or atlatl darts, I should say. Atlatl darts made of wood and not reeds. That would be my guess. All right. So here we go. I'll show you how I hafted this Clovis. There's a wedge here on this side. Now I'm going to haft it again if I have time. I think I do. I'm going to wrap it again with the string to show you how it all works. Okay. So this is kind of a complicated way to do it. It took me a while to get it just right. But I've seen examples of Native Americans in the far northern areas using this type of arrangement for making harpoon tips. All right. As opposed to the straight notch like this. They would do the notch like this. Okay, I just added the wedge in here. I'm not sure if there's examples where they use wedges, but this seems to work well for me, or in this case. All right, so this is one way. The other way, of course, is the old standard U-notch, and they both will hold the Clovis easily. Okay, that way, or, oops, or this way. Okay. Keep dropping because it's hard to look through the viewfinder at the same time trying to handle these. Okay. I'll show you how I did this. What I do is, I start with the wedge up high. Seat that in there. Now you can be more careful when you do this. You can also, this one here, you can have more wood sticking up here. I just cut it straight off. It was just easier, more expedient for me, but this could be made better to fit this fluted area better. Okay. I just did it quickly. Alright. So what you would do is you'd put glue in here. Get some glue in there. It can't be the type that would harden up quickly because this takes a few minutes to get accomplished. So the glue would have to be slow drying or slow cooling, because you're gonna have to wedge it after you wrap it. You don't want the glue hardening up or drying before you can wedge it. Alright, so it's right at the top of the wood foreshaft. Okay. Keep everything seated as you go down. Centered and all that. The binding needs to be smooth. I'm pulling it tight. As tight as I can without, having the stuff fly everywhere. Now again, this cordage or the string is a little bit thicker than I would imagine that they used. I would think they used something thinner to make the transition more smooth. And to lay flatter. But it was probably something they could tie and untie. As they needed to replace broken tips or whatever. Broken points. And maybe to resharpen, they would take it out of the haft. Alright, so once I get to this point here, I need to drive in the wedge. So just take another piece of wood. Okay. I got this right here on my leg. You see how it's driving it in. Hammerstone. So yeah, it tightens up the bindings extremely tight. Okay, and then just finish off. See the end of the wedges here. And I imagine they would find a way to glue down this binding a little bit, maybe some waterproofing over the top. Not too much, because then it would be hard to unbind, but definitely some glue in there. And if you made the joint carefully enough, not much glue is needed. Okay, and that's in there pretty good. I can move it though. Okay, but if you had glue in there, it'd be pretty firm. All right, and I can use this without glue too, just by holding it like this. The handle, and if there's not much glue, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose except to make it easier. But it does pull out. I've tried pulling it out. It does pull out easy. So you would need something in there. Okay. Now, I'll just show you. See how that pulls out? Now, if you found a way to crisscross down, you could hold it in better with another binding technique. But with just this simple one, it pulls out easily. Okay. And the reason why I'm taking this out is I want to show you something else. Something real quick. Alright, so I made this U-shaped notch, and there's different ways to make this. You can carve it, or you can break it out. The other match to this looks like a tenon, all right? And there's other explanations. I mean, there's explanations elsewhere on how to make this by breaking it. I won't get into that in this video. Anyway, I made it so it would fit this Clovis. And with a square open bottom like this instead of a V, you can adjust, see the bottom, you can adjust the point so it'll be aligned along the axis of the foreshaft. There's plenty of room to move it around. Now it fits one way better than the other way, as most points do. And I was curious to see if these other Clovis casts would fit in here in the same way. And guess what? They do fit. And there is a better fit in one direction than in the other. I think this fits better in this direction than this one. Although this one, it's kind of loose, so it will, if you have plenty of glue, it will fit either way. But it fits a little bit better this way. Okay. And this one here, that one is from Oregon or something. I can't remember exactly, but these are from the Lithics Casting Lab also. These are casts made of plastic, of Clovis points. And this one's from Texas. And it also fits. And it fits in better one way than the other. Fits in better that way. Okay. So either way, I think that the Clovis was hafted to an atlatl dart, either with the U notch or with the wedge. The wedge and notch technique. Either way. Okay. And these are about, I guess, about average for Clovis. This particular size. I need to do a comparison and get as many Clovis dimensions as possible to get an average size like I did with the Dalton. Okay.